We're living in a period of great change, of great uncertainty, perhaps unparalleled and unprecedented. Future generations will look back at this time as being one of the most defining in the history of mankind. History is littered with dynasties, with kingdoms, with empires, stories of grandeur, of excesses, of control, of power, and stories, ultimately, of death and destruction. From the Mongols to the Mayans, from the Romans to the Russians, or the Russians to the Romans, from the Byzantines to the British, all were very, very successful empires at their peak. None of them exist today. The rise and the fall of is a common catch cry or a common phrase in modern times, of modern literature. And that is simply because all empires all rose and then they all fell, without question, all of them. Empires go through a life cycle of stages, all empires follow pretty much the same life cycle. It begins with the age of pioneers, which then goes to the age of conquests, through to the age of commerce, through to the age of influence and affluence, followed by the age of intellect, decadence, and then ultimately the age of decline. Today, I'll just be speaking briefly only about the age of decline. Decline, in all cases, happens pretty much at the same stage of an empire's life cycle, and that is when they are at their peak. That is when the seeds are sown. And there's two main factors why all empires have been destroyed. And they're two parallel forces of evil working together. The first of these is when the powers start to spend money on their military. And then they put that military to use. And the end result is obviously wars. Wars are prohibitively expensive to run. And ultimately, they debilitate the economy of the country, or the empire in this case, that they belong to. The second evil force, which is the downfall of empires, is called the corrosive effect of materialism. Basically, at the same time as when the empire is spending money on military, the empire is also at its most wealthiest. And even the common man has a propensity, even the common man basically is in a state like not before and has money to spend. And what they spend the money on is just normal stuff, but also on material goods. And about this time, the thinking of the common man changes. The thinking, the thought patterns, the values which created the empire in the first place, that being hard work, that being self-control and self-discipline, these values are discarded. And that is when the decline of the empire starts. So both of these forces together basically snowball, and the empire is at a weakened state forever after. Today, the United States of America is the empire which is in existence. It's the empire which has pretty much been in existence for everybody in this room's lifetime, even though there has been other powers of sorts. But they are the only one that's been in constant force of our time from the beginning of the 20th century. The United States of America is also in a state of decline, a state of irreversible decline, I might add. This can be seen simply by turning on to any news channel, even though it might not be in black and white. The signs are there. However, it is also a fact of history. The path that the USA is treading, the actions it is taking, are all consistent with other empires at their stages of decline. The consequences of this will be catastrophic. The first thing will be is that the economy will be destroyed. Other signs perhaps will be that there will be some type of hyperinflation, maybe like in Zimbabwe over the last 15 years, or maybe like in Germany after the war, after World War I. Other signs might be that the wars of today maybe are just intensified and grown, and just like a World War III, I guess, which could result in total anarchy. But the one thing that is certain, the main effect, is that the common man will be the most affected. The common man who won't be able to protect himself. The masses. The difference between this collapse of this empire and these empires that have collapsed in history, there is a difference. And that difference is that in today's world, there is a lot more interconnectedness. Globalization has meant that no individual, no corporation, no nation acts in isolation. And the United States sits atop of that interconnectivity tree, pulling the strings. Therefore, when destruction occurs, it will be felt and it will be seen and felt across the world, across the civilized world. This may look like a doomsday picture which I'm painting. Well, this is not my theory, believe me, I'm not so clever. There are numerous media and respected commentators giving times to these topics. Adding weight to these theories is what some major players are doing to protect themselves, because they know what is coming. Multinationals and governments are unhinging themselves from their dependence on the United States in everything that they do, in a bid to limit in everything they do. That's what I have to read the notes, you get confused sometimes. As individuals, we can also take steps to protect ourselves. I urge you not to be ignorant, not to be ambivalent about these matters, to evaluate, to educate yourself and to act to protect your families. I urge you to do this. It's very important because a disaster is coming.